My name's Liam, and this is the market roundup for the 3rd of March 2021. And we've got a lot of things to get through today, so it'll be really tough to keep this under 5 minutes, but let's try. It was a mixed day in Asia. In Japan, the Nikkei rose 0.5%, with notable standouts being Honda up 1.7% and Takeda Pharmaceutical up almost 3%. The latter the result of some recent divestitures and global rights for a handful of blockbuster drugs. In China, things were far from the red wall we've been seeing recently. Alibaba showed some fighting spirit after its recent fall, rising 1%, whilst both China Petroleum and PetroChina were up 3% on increasing oil prices. There were also some pretty big fallers though, NIO among them, down over 4%. The Hang Seng was up over 3% on excitement of an overhaul of the index. The overhaul sees the number of companies listed rising to 80 and limiting an individual company's weighting to 8% of the index. Several Chinese companies, including phone provider Xiaomi, were up 5% as another rule saw secondary listings no longer limited to 5% of the index's weighting. Yet another change was to how long a company seeking a listing must be around for. It's now just 3 months. In the UK, the focus was all about the budget. Many of the announcements were leaked from the government over the last week, and to begin with caused little movement in the stock market, with the upside already priced in. But then details were digested and there was clearly some winners. The FTSE 100 finished up 1% and the FTSE 250 up 1.2%. As the market saw a supportive environment, it was hard to find issue with the budget, honestly, other than how it would be financed, which was an increase from 19% to 25% in corporation tax, but starting in April 2023, and only for companies making more than £500,000 a year in profit. There also was some generous loss offsetting against taxes and investment incentives to compensate. The government was also at pains to emphasise that despite this rise, it would still be the lowest tax of any major economy. Other than airlines and other recovery stocks predictably up, there were 2 big winning sectors. House builders accounted for 3 of the top 5 risers, with Barratt Development, Persimmon, both up 7%, and Taylor Wimpey up 6%. This was off the back of a continued stamp duty holiday on home purchases and the government underwriting much of the risk if banks would offer 95% of mortgages. As with successive governments, there was continued focus driving up demand for home without thinking about supply, which means the prices will only go up. IAG was also in the top 5, continuing the resurgence of airline stocks as the budget was encouraging and clearly would support the UK economy, at least in the short term. Lastly, though, it was one of the FTSE 100's worst performing companies over the last 5 years, BT. A key announcement in the budget was the super deduction tax relief, which means for every £1 million invested, companies get 1.3 million off their tax bill. And you did hear that right. So you invest £1 million, the government will give you a rebate off your tax bill of 1.3 million. Great. BT, who also own mobile network EE, are seen as having significant investment requirements over the next few years and are in demand accordingly. As an aside, my employer is majority owned by BT, and my position means I see sensitive information from BT PLC, so I won't be giving more opinions on this company to avoid any conflict of interest. But I didn't want to just ignore it either, so I'm reporting just that news here. Other winners from the budget were financials who provide mortgages, and inevitably this means Lloyds, my one UK bank holding and the UK's largest provider of mortgages. It was up 3.5%. Lloyds has a significant discount against net asset value and is one of those underloved stocks that I'm happy to own. Meanwhile, the fallers were a mixed bag, but with the NASDAQ having another wobble, the US Tech Scottish Mortgage Investment Trust focused company was up there, falling 3%. Other fallers were utilities, presumably investors feeling that safe havens were just not worth their time. Severn Trent, SSE, National Grid all fell by more than 2%. Over on the FTSE 250, though, there were some huge jumps. Pub chain Wetherspoons was up 6%, cheered not just by the recovery, but by taxes on alcohol being frozen in the budget. More home builders predictably rose, including Hammerson up 8% and Crest Nicholson up almost as much, and my holding Redrow up 5%. Carnival Cruises, like airlines, similarly rose on recovery hopes, and smaller financials such as Virgin Money also did well. The real standout, though, was actually nothing to do with the budget and all to do with Amazon, and that was in Micro Focus, up 14% on the news that they had reached a commercial agreement with Amazon to help companies modernize their applications before moving to AWS, Amazon's web service. Micro Focus were at one time a FTSE 100 company, but have fallen back significantly. Even after today's rise, it's valued at just £2 billion. But with the immediate upside of the deal expected to bring in profits of at least 300 million, there was fevered speculation about what this could mean in the long run for the company. Meanwhile, in America, tech stocks were being battered, and as mentioned before, the NASDAQ closed down almost 3%. And I tried to catch a falling knife by buying Microsoft and Broadcom, as both came into my buy range. As a result, they're now both in my top 5 holdings of my portfolio. Honestly, though, America was a wall of red today. Pick almost any stock and just assume it fell 3%. Maybe that's a little unfair to a few well-performing sectors. So let's start with financials, with the big 4 banks all up between 1.5% and 2.5%. Regional banks were also mostly green, with my favourite Huntington Bank shares up 1.5%, continuing its recent run following a large acquisition in progress. Energy also saw mostly green, with Exxon and Chevron up 1%, again off the back of good price of oil. And lastly, there was some undervalued aerospace and defence sector, with Boeing notable and leading the way, up 2.5%. But still, the S&P finished down 1.3% and the Dow Jones 0.4%, so all three fell in America. Meanwhile, Bitcoin recovered some of its recent falls and is now back above 50k, always fun to watch. And despite a positive budget, the sterling remains just shy of $1.40 against the dollar, just giving UK investors in American companies some welcome respite from the onslaught. Well, that's everything from me. It's a tough one to get through that so quickly, but thanks for watching and good luck with your investing.